And the more people I met, the more I fell in love, the more I saw the value and worth of these individuals with Down syndrome. And then learning the statistics, especially of the termination rate, it was breaking my heart. And I'm like, I'm going to fight, because I would have hated for somebody to terminate Jay.
Hello, sweet friends. I'm Stephanie Jacobs, a storyteller and advocate for social justice, and your host of the Love Light Stories podcast, a place where we uncover a deeper understanding of humanity through beautiful, redemptive stories that inspire our hearts. If you long to see more love, empathy, and true connection in our world and your own life, you're in the right place. After spending multiple years studying social justice issues, I've realized the power story has in helping us to understand, empathize, and transform our worldviews into something that's just that, views that are truly worldly. Here in this space, we'll embrace our humanity through raw and authentic stories told by real people themselves. We'll amplify their voices and learn to connect in more meaningful ways. Poverty, human trafficking, incarceration, race, immigration, and more. We'll embrace difficult conversations, sometimes controversial topics, and lighthearted stories too. If you wish to uncover the hope, love, empathy, and connection we can find in our fellow humanity, this is a show for you. So, are you ready, lovely? Let's jump in. Well, hello there, lovely. Welcome back to the Love Light Stories podcast, where we create space for real personal stories to be seen, heard, and understood. If you haven't yet, be sure to rate the show, follow, and share it with your family and friends. Today on the podcast, I'm welcoming David Hughens. David is the screenplay writer behind Made with Love, a new crowdfunded movie that highlights the love, joy, and productivity of those with Down syndrome. In this conversation, you'll hear David's experience of befriending Jay and why he decided to create a movie to foster inclusivity and understanding of people like Jay. October is Down Syndrome Awareness Month, and so I thought this would be the perfect time to invite David to share about Made with Love. After all, a big part of the movie's purpose is to show how incredible people with Down syndrome truly are and educate and advocate on their behalf. Most of all, when I first connected with David about this movie, I knew I had to have him on the show because of the heart and purpose behind this movie. In this episode, David tells the lighthearted story of how he became friends with Jay, a man with Down syndrome, and what inspired this movie, along with so much more that we get into. As you probably know, my brother Jesse has Down syndrome, and it was so fun to connect in this conversation about the similarities we discovered about our experiences with Jay and Jesse. This really feels like a special episode for so many reasons. For one, this movie has garnered a lot of attention with countless screenplay awards and support from big names in the industry. David is making this into a major motion picture, and to think such a beautiful story will be on the big screen is exciting. And the fact that we get a behind-the-scenes meet and greet with David is pretty cool too. But I think the biggest reason this feels like a special episode is the simple fact that once you form a relationship with someone who has Down syndrome, joy exudes out of you, and you just can't help but share how special they are. For that reason, it was a lot of fun recording with David. It's also just such a lighthearted episode that makes you feel good. So let's hear from David, shall we? David, I am so excited to have you on the Love Light Stories podcast today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, ever since we met a couple of months ago and I got to learn about the movie Made with Love that you're writing and getting made, that I just could not wait for people to hear about this, because I, of course, have a personal connection with my brother having Down syndrome. And I think You're absolutely right. Like there's so much to share about them, and we'll get into that as we go. But before we talk about the movie itself, I would really love to dive in and hear more about you and how you came to be in this filmmaking space. So I think, if I'm correct, your mother's writing really inspired you at a young age to get into this,
Yes,
right?
indeed. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yes, indeed. So I guess I was in high school. My mom was always what I would call an amateur writer. She just loved to write. And I guess she instilled that in me at a young age, even though I didn't write a ton in my early years. But I was always aware and reading and listening to her. But she had a story in her mind that she wanted to get out on paper. And instead of writing a novel or a short story or poetry, for some reason, she decided to write it in screenplay format. And she had never written a screenplay before or anything like that. So she just found some books and started writing. So the story was about she had done some modeling, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Angels. They're the Navy stunt pilots that go around
Yes.
to air shows and everything. And so this was back in the 50s. And she met one of these guys, and they started dating. And he crashed and died while they were dating. So he was the
Oh, wow.
first Blue Angel to ever perish. Um, and so it was kind of one of these just, heart wrenching love stories.
Yeah.
And I read this screenplay she had written and just was brought to tears and said, "You've got to do something with this." And she's like, "Well, I don't know what to do." We're living in Alabama at the time. So it's not like, we're so far from Hollywood.
Yeah.
Um, but, I'm like, you said you went to high school and college with an actress, a famous actress. You should maybe try to contact her and see if she can help. This famous actress, I don't know if you're a little young to remember this, but played Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in the early 70s. And she won an Academy Award for this movie.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So her name is Louise Fletcher. And so my mom contacted her, and Louise is like, "Well, Ann, I'm just an actress. I don't know, if I can help you a lot with that, but, I'll see what I can do." And she really didn't come through with anything, but it just kind of started us on this path of, well, maybe who could we talk to? One thing led to another. She met some people from LA that were coming back to Alabama. And I was, once again, I'm kind of young. I mean, I'm just in high school. I hadn't really shown much interest in writing or filmmaking or whatever. But I met this person from LA, and they knew somebody that shot commercials around my hometown. So I started working just as a gopher on TV commercials. And the bug bit me. I was like, "Oh, this is fun. This is cool. I like it." Ended up meeting somebody else from LA. I got more interested in the whole thing. My mom's project didn't really get traction, so it didn't really get anywhere. But this guy that I had met mentioned I guess it was a weekend seminar on how to produce low budget films, a weekend seminar. So I went to LA and took this seminar. And as I say, it was just enough information to be dangerous. So here I was in my early 20s, full of bravado. I can do it. Now I know how to make a movie. And we had this idea to shoot a movie. And we ended up, through friends and family and local investors, raised money and shot a feature film when I was 23 years old.
Wow, that is so incredible. And to have gotten into it from really reading and understanding the story that your mother was writing and not having any interest up until that point. And now you're back into filmmaking. But before, so I know you mentioned to me that your career path changed a little bit after that film. So you went to corporate, right?
Yeah. So I had tried to get this film done, ran into a lot of legal hurdles. I was really young and green, way in over my head. And so it just ran into so many brick walls. I finally said, "Look, I'm just going to put this on the shelf." And I ended up pursuing several different things. I pursued music for a while, graphic arts, and ended up kind of in corporate sales, and then finally in marketing, and found myself in Raleigh, North Carolina. Had a son, lived there for like almost, 15 to 20 years, working this nice job and taking care of an elderly father who was a World War II vet. And he finally passed away. And it was during that time I was in the hospital room with him that I got really close to God. and had this epiphany. And I was just like, God, I want to give back. I've been blessed. What do you want me to do? And God said pretty plainly, well, 2x4 over the head several times, I want you back in filmmaking. And I was like, okay, all right. And so I dedicated my life. I quit my 6-figure-a-year job that I'd had for 15 plus years, sold my house, moved to Atlanta in the middle of the pandemic, and committed to God that I'm going to make feature films that will glorify him until the day I go home.
That is so incredible. And just the timing too, because I think we've seen recently quite a few feature films that have come out, and just the success of those films. And it's really catching Hollywood's eye. I think they're taking a second look at that because our culture and just our lifestyles are so poised for this really good, positive, heart-provoking stories.
Absolutely.
That's just incredible. And you've had quite a bit of success in these films as well, right?
Well, as far as writing the script, so
yes.
Yeah. So I made that first feature way back when. So now I'm working to get this will be my second feature film to produce. But once I got here to Atlanta, and it was still during COVID, my son and I really buckled down to study story and screenwriting just so that we could be the best that we could be.
Right.
And God gave me 6 screenplays. And I don't consider myself a writer. I'm like, that's not, if you go back and look at my grades, you're like, yeah, this guy's not a writer. But, divine inspiration, God gave me 6 screenplays. The first screenplay I wrote was about an Afghan war vet. And I entered it into a film festival. And the first one I entered it into, I won the best screenplay award. I was literally at the award thing. I'm sitting there. They call my name out, and the lady next to me has to elbow me and go, that was you. I'm like, what? No way.
Not expecting it.
No, not expecting. Now I don't doubt God. It's not about me, but God is pouring through me. So now when that happens, I'm going, there we go. There's God again. He's going, he's rolling. Because if he put me in that, I'm like, okay, this is God. So the movie I'm working on now, Made with Love, has won over 40 awards in film festivals worldwide.
Yeah, that is just incredible. And like you said, what God can do, and just basically downloading these stories through you as his tool to get these out into the world. Yes. It's amazing what he can do when we say yes, right?
Right. So it took, like I said, that 2x4 up against the head. It took me a little while to say yes.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, it's a daily struggle to be obedient and just follow, because it's a little scary. I'm living off my savings. Mm-hmm. I've been going for 3 years now. I don't have a lot of time left with that in this crazy economy. So working hard to get it made and trusting, a lot of faith. I'm way outside that boat.
Yes. Well, I haven't done nearly to the extent of what you have, but I can understand on a micro level the stepping out in faith and trusting God, and leaving my corporate job 4 or 5 years ago to get into this work that's ultimately led to this podcast. And I've had the support of my husband, which has been really helpful on the financial side, of course, but still that just stepping out into something that God has called you to do is not an easy thing, and it takes time to do. But when we say yes, like we just said, he really can do some amazing things. So I also want to just highlight the fact you mentioned your son. You're working on this with your son, which I think is just such a cool, that's the 3rd generation now into filmmaking.
Right. Yeah, it is an absolute blessing. Our relationship has gotten stronger. His relationship with the Lord has gotten stronger. He has watched me walk in faith, and that has, strengthened him. And then he's just a super talented young man. He's so tenderhearted. So it's just a blessing to have him by my side. And we challenge each other. We're there for each other. And I call him my backup hard drive. I'm like, all right, if I get run over by a bus, you've got to be there and take this project over. So I try to include him on all the meetings that we attend. Plus his memory's better than mine. So
yeah, I was reading a little bit about his interest too. And he didn't necessarily get into this because you were interested in it. He had went to school and got an internship at Warner Media in Atlanta.
Yes.
And then you moved to Atlanta later.
Yes, exactly.
So that's really interesting too, that he can just naturally have that same passion, and how God has placed that in your son as well, so you can work together. It's just really a neat thing. So I love that
Yes.
about your story. Okay, so let's get into Made with Love, the movie. And I want to understand a little bit about how you met Jay and what he's done in your life.
Yes, indeed. So, a longtime family friend of mine adopted Jay about 10 years ago. She had a daughter that went to high school with Jay, and the daughter just fell in love with Jay. And Jay came from a single parent household, probably not the best situation at the time. And so she was like, Mom, I want to adopt this young man at my school. And my friend was like, honey, you're about to go off to college. You can't take him into the dorm room with you. So my friend, who was a very successful businesswoman, adopted Jay. And he's been in their family now, like I said, for over 10 years. And they are just like tight and just buddies and do all kind of stuff together. And so when I would come to Atlanta and visit, I would go and I got to meet Jay. And the first time I met him, I mean, he just melted my heart and we hit it off. One of Jay's favorite pastimes is coloring. So as soon as I got there, of course, he just hugged me and he was friendly and outgoing. And he's like, hey, would you like to color? And I was like, well, sure. Why not? Now, I came from working at a school, so I'm around kids all the time. And like my favorite group were the toddlers. I loved going to the toddler playground. They're just so honest, right?
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Hughens, your shirt looks terrible. Oh, well, thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
You got a replacement for me or whatever, So Jay had that same childlike innocence about him. And I'm like, sure, buddy, let's color. And then, the other adults were like, well, you don't have to do that with him. I'm like, I know. So that's the way I got to know Jay, is I kind of would rather hang out with him than the rest of the boring adults,
Yeah.
So Jay and I bonded over coloring. And then, later on, he found out that, I was a filmmaker. And he's like, I've always wanted to be a movie star. You should write a movie about me. So I
Oh,
mean, the
wow.
saying is,
Yeah.
Jay's like, just go home and think about me and write a movie. And that's what I did.
Oh.
If you read this script and Jay, you're like, that's Jay. So he was definitely the inspiration, and it will be all Jay on that screen.
Oh, that is so cool. And I love that you bonded over coloring. And it's really interesting because my brother Jesse also loves to color. And so every night he is very routine oriented. So he does it
Yep.
every night, and he
Yep.
colors while he watches TV, and he has a little snack, and he dates each of the coloring pages every night. And then usually he'll like take a picture and send it to me and say it's a little gift, or he has a present for me, or it's just, like you said, so innocent and fun. And people with Down syndrome have so much to say too. And they're just so real and honest and forthright. But usually their
Yep.
forthrightness is sweet rather than
Sweet.
Yeah. It's usually
Yes.
very sweet. So I just love that. I feel like I can totally connect on that example. And I know you mentioned too that he's had quite a few jobs. Like he's been very productive and successful in his life already too.
Yes. He has worked at a local hair salon. He has worked at Chick-fil-A. He has his own foot rubbing business that he's quick to tell you about. The man has got tools like you would not believe, lotions and tools and little things to massage your feet with. I mean, it's incredible. He also is a member of a cheer squad that he loves that. So, I mean, he's a Renaissance man, and now he's about to be a major motion picture star.
Yes, gosh. And he sounds like he's just someone with so much energy. Like he doesn't have, perhaps, at least from my experience too with my brother and just hearing all the things that he's been interested in and done in his life, he doesn't have that awareness of feeling perhaps like he's not good enough or like he can't do it, or he just has more of a positive go-getting attitude, it sounds like.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. He calls us all the time with marketing ideas for the film. Hey, let's start a blog. Hey, we need to form a band. Hey, let's get in touch with the governor. I mean, it's
Oh
incredible.
my
Which I
gosh.
love that because that's I used to teach brainstorming and creative thinking, and it's like just go for it, buddy. So he's
Right.
always calling, and yeah,
Oh, that's so cool. Just to have no limits mindset, basically, and
right.
the sky's the limit. And that's so amazing. What else? Is there anything else I should say about Jay that you just want to share about, the things you've learned from him and your relationship and just his outlook on life?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it is just like you said. It's that childlike innocence, it's that sweetness. And I know in the Down syndrome community, people talk about, oh, well, they're not always happy. And I get that. And I've seen that. And Jason has a range of emotions. But there's also this underlying sense that he doesn't have malice, which I feel like is, present in a lot of people that we know. So I love that. His love is unconditional and he's quick to forgive. So I just love that. I mean, I just call him like an angel on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he's very inspiring to me, and and really, quite frankly, to be part of a marginalized group and still have that attitude, I love
Right.
it.
Yes.
So that's why I love my buddy Jay so much.
Yes. I love that you say angel on earth because I've literally used those words so many times about my own brother and just that same outlook on life. And yes, he has a wide range of emotions, just like all of us, because he's human. I mean,
Right.
that's to be expected. But overall, there's just this sweetness and love and joy and just astounding positivity that they bring. And like even my own brother in high school, like he was one of the most popular kids. Like everybody loved Jesse. He didn't get teased. He was manager for the basketball team with his grade. Like there were so many things that he got to do because of who he was and his outlook on life. And
Yeah.
I think it's so amazing. And really, I believe that's his purpose on earth is to bring that little bit of heaven to earth. And so I always say he's an angel on earth. So I love that you said that too.
Yes.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about how you came to decide to write the screenplay in that Jay was like, you should do a movie about me, which again is his creative thinking and outgoing go-getter personality, which is amazing. But why else did you write this screenplay? Like share the goal behind the movie and like some of the statistics or anything like that that kind of just pushed you to really want to make this happen.
Right. So, like I said early on, God, when I had that epiphany and God tapped me on the shoulder, I knew that what I wanted to make was going to be positive, encouraging, uplifting, and that would ultimately glorify God. I didn't want to make things that would not. And there's so much bad stuff coming out these days, and it has been for a while. And I just think, especially as a Christian, it's my duty
Mm,
to put some light back out into the world. And I've been so blessed with my life that I just want to give back. So with that attitude, and when I started down the road to make this film and have Jay in it, I'm like, all right, I want to represent Jay and the Down syndrome community in the best light possible. It's
yes.
another reason I'm kind of trying to keep this independent and crowdfund and, all of us as a community come together and fund this so we can make it the way that it needs to be made and not have some big studio, you know, dictating to me how it needs to be made. So, with that in mind, I started doing research and getting into the community and meeting people. And the more people I met, the more I fell in love, the more I saw the value and worth of these individuals with Down syndrome. And then learning the statistics, especially of the termination rate, it was breaking my heart. And I'm like, I'm going to fight because I would have hated for somebody to terminate Jay,
Mm,
and to think
yeah.
about that. And I've heard so many stories on our Facebook page. We've had so many people share their diagnosis, being told that they might have a child with Down syndrome, being, kind of coerced or suggested heavily that they terminate, then going through the pregnancy and having a child that didn't have Down syndrome.
Mm,
So I mean, just crazy, crazy, crazy. So my goal has become, I want to raise awareness for the love and joy that they possess. the how they can be such productive members of society, and to raise awareness of that termination rate, and hopefully educate some young parents to take a second look, to look and see all the resources that are available out into the world. We just got back from the National Down Syndrome Congress Convention in Orlando.
Yes.
There were over 3,000 people there. We had a booth in the exhibit hall. I met tons of people, and there's so many resources, so many avenues for people to learn and educate themselves, that I just want to spread that. So I want to partner with all these people and just try to get that word out there.
I love that. I think it's so needed, because just years ago, I mean, even back when my parents had my brother 28 years ago, the way people were viewed with Down syndrome is different than it is today. And that wasn't that long ago, but there's still so much progress to be made. And because it hasn't been that long, it's reasonable to expect that there is more progress that needs to be made too. And so I think it's just amazing that this film can help do that, because perhaps the medical community is a little bit lagging, like you mentioned in that. I think it takes time for us to understand, for research to catch up, for us to just be sharing and experiencing what it's like to live with those with Down syndrome. I'm expecting right now, and one of the things they suggested that I do right away was take a test for Down syndrome on this specific baby. And they're really quick to suggest that. And I did do the test because I wanted to know, but it would not change, of course, my outcome or what I would do. I'd be delighted if I had a baby with Down syndrome, to be honest. But I worry that a lot of those tests are often done so early because they want to know and inform the parents and suggest that perhaps they don't keep the baby. And that's, I think, one of the big things you're saying, is that this film will hopefully help in our culture.
Right. That is exactly it. Just needs so much more education. And, I mean, it's been a little controversial. I know our video, we'd like to see that 75% or whatever the number is. I mean, I hear people say 60%, 70%, 75%. I've heard people say 100%. Whatever it is, it's too much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd like to see that number at zero. And I understand everybody has their right to make their decisions, and but I also, as a Christian, I believe God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And that's why I also want to show the resources. There's a community out there that will come around you. There's so many passionate parents and mothers and organizations that want to help you and help you get through this. And the thing that I keep hearing over and over again when I meet these people is, what we thought might be a burden or a hardship has turned out to be a blessing beyond belief. So that's what I want to show. Right. And, then let the people make their decision from there. But I want to at least educate them and show them these resources.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it is very true. Like if you're not educated and you don't understand a Down syndrome diagnosis, or any diagnosis for that matter, can be really overwhelming. And I can literally only imagine, because I haven't experienced it myself. It's scary. And if you have the experts, which are the doctors, telling you their recommendations and what you should do, and there's not a lot of information that you've been able to have access to, perhaps, it's a hard decision. So I can definitely begin to understand that. And so I just love that you're doing this to help us create that awareness and create a space for education. And I'll try to link some resources too in the show notes for families who are interested in learning more, or who are facing a diagnosis themselves, to point them in a direction where they can continue to learn.
That's awesome. That would be great.
Yes. So you also told me, which I just think is a interesting little tidbit about this film, that the co-director of Jesus Revolution is actually interested in helping you produce this movie, which I think is so cool, because that was like a very widely successful movie, and that he's interested in this is just so exciting.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, it made over $50 million in the box office, so that's a huge, huge success. It was a great film. I mean, just as a filmmaker, I enjoyed it. It was, well written, well acted. The cinematography was incredible. And so, yes, I've known Brent for a while now, and he he sees the value in this movie, and he wants to use his influence to help us to get this movie out there. He sees that it is important, so he's willing to come on board and help us, in any way that he can.
Yeah, that's amazing. What an exciting thing to look forward to see a movie so well done, and to be able to think that perhaps this movie could have that flair as well. I also saw on the crowdfunding website that you have a few films that you've mentioned that you're kind of shooting for the style or the level of professionalism in the production. And I noticed Peanut Butter Falcon and the movie
Yep.
Up. And I can't remember the third one, what it was, but Peanut Butter Falcon is my brother's absolute favorite movie. And I think it's because he's represented in that movie, And so anyway, when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is just so exciting.
I'm gonna try to flip through my phone quickly and show you, because we were just at this convention, and I was just so surprised to see who we saw in the hallway. It's
Oh
Zach
my
from Peanut Butter
gosh.
Falcon.
Oh, he would love that.
Yeah. So
oh, that's
that was a
amazing.
treat. That was a treat for us, because
Yes.
everybody knows that was a highly successful film, and it was really well done. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so I mentioned the website. Tell us the web link that people can go to if they're interested in learning more about the movie or supporting the film. Tell us how they can donate, all that.
Awesome. So we formed a nonprofit in order to raise the funds to get this film made. And if you go to madewithlovethemovie.com, you can go there, read more about it, see our promo video, and you can donate right there on the website. And, like I said, because we're trying to make this and put Down syndrome community in the best light possible, we need everybody's help. And it needs to be a grassroots effort. And as I tell everybody, I said, if you donate, this is your movie now. That's what crowdfunding is. It's not about me, David Hughens. It's about us coming together and not waiting on Hollywood to make something, not giving it over. People ask me all the time, well, why don't you get them to fund it? Why are you asking us? I'm like, because you believe in it. We want this film to be made with the love of people who love people with Down syndrome.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Wonderful. We'll go to the website, madewithlovethemovie.com, and you can learn more about it there and support the film. Well, thank you, David. This has been so much fun to chat with you and have the opportunity to share a little bit more about Down syndrome in general, your experiences with Jay, and a way that we can get involved, make things happen in our society, and move this Down syndrome conversation forward.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an honor.
Yes, thank you. Gosh, first of all, I just love Jay's childlike wonder and open-mindedness. It cracks me up in the best way that he calls David with so many great and big ideas. And it seems like David and Jay are such a great pair too, because David's posture is naturally to embrace Jay's ideas and the fun things he likes to do. It's just such a neat relationship. And to think we have an opportunity to help take this movie to the big screen is really exciting, isn't it? I love how David said he wants this movie to be made with love by the people who love Down syndrome. I highly recommend checking out the website to learn more about the movie. You can watch the promo videos, see pictures of Jay, and all the Screenplay awards and testimonials too. There's also an option to donate to the campaign right on the page, so it's quick and easy if you'd like to take part in making this movie a reality. Just go to madewithlovethemovie.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode too, where I've linked a bunch of different Down syndrome support resources. Oh, and pictures David shared with me, including one with the actor from Peanut Butter Falcon he mentioned. And be on the lookout for the next episode with my brother Jesse. Let me tell you, he is so excited to meet you, and it's a really sweet episode I can't wait for you to hear. Are you loving this episode? Come join us in the Love Light Stories Facebook community, where we make this show come to life. My goal is to make this more than a podcast and truly create a space where we can learn and grow alongside one another in community. Here, we can learn alongside each other with curiosity and humility, and ultimately emulate more love and light to all we meet. You'll be the first to know about upcoming coffee chats, in-person events, book studies, and more. It's here where we'll go deeper in discussion around the topics we explore on the show. You'll even have the chance to meet guests from time to time. Go to stephaniemjacobs.com/manifesto to join. You'll receive an instant download of our manifesto with access to the community. Oh, and did I mention it's all free? So what are you waiting for? Come join us. I just can't wait to meet you, lovely. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast and leaning into today's story. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts so you don't ever miss an episode. And a great way you can support these conversations is to rate the show and leave a review. And if you have a friend who would like these stories, share it with them too. All of these things are the best way you can support this podcast. So thank you. And until next time, lovelies, keep radiating that love and light to everyone you meet.